Welcome back. Not too long ago, I did a video on an Ishta Devata process, right? And I had a really interesting comment. He said, Forrest, I think you've lost it on this one. Now you are an object praying to an object. How can that be right? And I really understand where this is coming from. And so I want to talk about this because it's really interesting in the way that the brain works and how a meditative practice can unfold for us. And if we don't know about some of these processes, then what we will be left with is a meditative practice that has a bit of a hole inside of it. So let's get into it. So I know where this is coming from. It's coming from Buddhism, and there are a number of Buddhists who go on to internet websites and they profess that Buddhism is really the only way, and that one way of thinking about meditation is the only way, it's the one proper way to think about meditation. And that sounds like so much dogma. It's like how can this be in Buddhism of all the possible places to find this kind of narrowness? How could we find this in Buddhism? Buddhism is huge. There are so many different kinds of Buddhism. So if you find yourself saying to somebody, "You're doing meditation wrong because I read it in a book," doesn't that sound wrong to you? It's wrong. That's a wrong attitude. Okay? The spiritual world is wide, and the processes that are available to you are wide. And this goes all the way back. This is actually an old problem. And this goes all the way back to Anna Wise. So Anna Wise would sit down with people with the mind mirror technology. It was the much older version. And they would glue the electrodes onto your brain, right, onto your skull. And they would read your brain waves. And she would get these Buddhists who were going fairly deep. They were beginning to go into like a mini absorption state. And yet it kind of dead end right there. And her solution was, I think you need to get more messages from the higher self. And so you need more interaction. And so she would ask them to do things that would cause them to be more dualistic in their meditation. And it really would bother them because their whole focus in Buddhism, in the Zen meditation that they had been practicing, was very non-dual, right? Which we understand in yoga. Hey, non-dual is great. Samadhi is great. Entering into that non-dual state, entering into a union, entering into a samadhi, we love that. We know all about that. And yet yoga also has these dualistic processes. And the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's the supplementation of Arjuna to Krishna. And in this way, Krishna is representing the higher self. Arjuna is representing our meditative fervor, and we are supplicating, we are praying to the higher self. So the first part of the Bhagavad Gita is a prayer process. Prayer processes are everywhere and they are divine because they give you this ability to speak with the higher self while you're in a dualistic part of your life, right? When you're driving your car, you don't want to be in samadhi, okay? You're in a dualistic process driving your car. And while you're driving your car, you can be praying, right? You can be having a conversation with the higher self. And the way that that falls out in the brain, it actually falls out primarily with the left amygdala. So that whole process is taking place on the left side of your brain. So are you just talking to yourself? Well, in an ultimate sense, yes, it is you. It is your higher self. But the knowing is actually coming across the brain as an echo. So the knowing comes from the right brain, from the higher self expressing through the right brain, crossing over into the area of the left amygdala. And that's where you have the experience of joy and bliss connecting to your higher self, getting a message from your higher self, getting a vision from your higher self. And so Anna Wise was encouraging this kind of a Ishta Devata process. She was encouraging this back and forth in a dualistic manner. And some of the Buddhists just left. They said, no way, I'm not trying that. I'm not trying that at all. Not for 5 minutes. And they just walked out. And some of them were open and they tried it. And their meditations blossomed because of it. It doesn't mean that they left behind the non-dual that they were looking for. It means they found another way to express that same knowing in a dualistic process during the day. And it makes life that much more fun and relevant and interesting. So don't discount prayer, don't discount a dualistic process because it involves such deep parts of your brain. If you want a non-dual experience of the right hippocampus and bliss in the left amygdala, right? That expansion is in the right brain, that bliss is in the left amygdala. If you want that non-dual experience, well, you're using your right hippocampus, you're using your left amygdala. And what are you using in a conversation with your higher self? What are you using? The left amygdala and an echo from the right brain, from the right hippocampus. Same parts of the brain. It's extremely meaningful. A lot of yogis will find that using this kind of dualistic process, a prayer process, awakening the heart, awakening devotion, awakening bhakti, right? That will have an effect on the non-dual experience. How deep do I get in my meditation? I got a little bit deeper because I awakened my heart. Why did that work? Well, the bliss draws you up into the upper nervous system, and it makes it easier to access the right brain. So it all plays a part. It all fits together. And without it, we're left with kind of a hole in our practice. And so we'll look to somebody like Lahiri Mashaya, and we'll say, well, he had a vision of Kali. And then he went into the right brain, right? He went into a non-dual experience. He became one with Kali. He wrote in his diary, I am Kali, right? That was his experience. He had a samadhi and he became Kali. And then he would come out and he would have another vision of Kali. And so it's this beautiful back and forth between a dualistic experience and a non-dual experience. And they're both beautiful. They're both extremely meaningful, and one can add to the other. Wouldn't we want that? And so that's the training I've been working on, is to fill that gap, right? To fill that hole. Sometimes we don't always know how to approach this dualistic process of speaking with the higher self. And so I'm actually working on a training for that right now. I'm about 75% of the way through. I hope I can finish it within the next week or 2 weeks. I hope. And so that will be coming up. But I want to talk a little bit about how we've got these non-dual processes on the right side of the brain. We're trying to enter into a union state a lot of times. That's expansion. And then other times we're praying to the higher self, we're having a conversation with the higher self, we're listening to the higher self, we get a vision from the higher self. And these are all processes, a personal God process on the left side of the brain. It takes place with the left amygdala, the center of bliss and joy. And so how can we get into that a little bit right now, Forrest? Well, practice the cute baby meditation. So go on YouTube, put cute baby meditation Forrest, and you'll have my video on the cute baby meditation. It's so powerful, it's so easy, and it's the most clear version of bhakti that you can possibly, or metta, that you can possibly practice. It's a really beautiful way to begin this kind of a practice, getting in touch with that left amygdala. And that will set you up perfectly for this training that's coming up. So I hope that made sense. I hope you love this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next time.